Welcome to the show. Chris Graham here, and we've got Terry Shore Jr. as our guest, and Terry is running for the Ward B seat on Waynesboro City Council. Terry, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it.
So you're wrapping up a second term on City Council, is that correct?
Second term as the at-large member. Yeah.
And so I got to ask first off, eight years isn't enough of headaches and phone calls at weird hours, and I mean we're talking on a Sunday afternoon, and you're asking for more. What's on your mind there?
Well, I've it's been really an incredible honor and an opportunity to give back to a community that we have loved and been a part of for sneaking up on 20 years when we moved here in '05. And uh, yeah, I mean, with the May elections to November, I'll have 8.5 years. And then I did 8 years on the planning commission. So 16 and a half years of my life, along with some other things, dedicated to trying to improve the community that we live in. And I'm a big advocate and believer in that. If you see a need, you fill a need. And I think that there have been some legacy things that have been set aside and cast upon for a really long time in our community. And so I was grateful in 2016 to get that opportunity. And I'll tell anybody that I view an opportunity of a 4-year term as with urgency, right? And so with that urgency is what can I possibly do to try to move the needle as fast as possible within a bureaucracy, as fast as possible within those 4 years, because you're only ever guaranteed the 4 years. And so I am so proud of what we've been able to accomplish um, together as community, working with colleagues of divergent political perspectives and views, and still been able to make some incredible progress in the last 8 years. So for that, there's a couple things I really want to get over the finish line. And I wasn't going to run again, and I had because I've told people all along, and it's something that I've sort of rooted in is that um, I think that you want to serve in a sense that you might intrigue or inspire, or get folks motivated to also want to step in, because I think it's always good to have fresh ideas. But I'd also say that I'm a big advocate. I serve in a variety of capacities across the state for our community to represent our community. I'm the only member of council that does that, and so I think it's really important to do that, and want to get a couple things over the finish line.
So I want to talk, and some of our viewers, listeners might not know your day job also involves government, and I think what you talked about there, representing the city, in a statewide capacity as well. I think your day job with VDOT, with the Virginia Department of Transportation, which has you working with a number of communities up and down, can also be something that broadens your perspective. I mean, in a way that Waynesboro doesn't have unique problems that other people, other cities, other localities aren't also dealing with, and maybe you can bring solutions in that other localities are working on, and maybe see if they can work in Waynesboro.
Right. I think Johnny Cash said one time that the best songs have already been stolen. And I think there's a lot to be said about getting good ideas from other communities and lessons learned from other communities. And again, with my role with the department, again, 19 and a half years, I've had the privilege of, as you said, working with hundreds really of localities across Virginia, and it's really given me a perspective of the temperature of councils, the temperature of communities, and the importance of creating identity and then trying to capitalize and invest in those identities to create a sustainable community. So yeah, I would absolutely say that. And prior to VDOT, I worked in a large corporate consulting community in the Chicago area before he moved to Virginia, and in that respect, he served in hundreds of localities, communities all over the Midwest and East Coast and the like. So
Before people think you're too wonky, though, I mean, day job, VDOT, other day job, city council, because that's a full-time job with just part-time pay. Music is a big, important thing for you. Not just, I mean, some folks might remember you're the founder of the Chili Blues and Brews Fest. But in addition to that catalyst role there, just personally, music, you play music, you're a musician as well.
yeah, yeah. So I had the great honor. I was on the Waynesboro Downtown Development Board, which is now a Destination Downtown. And we had been on the board for a couple of years, and we were losing money off the chili festival like crazy. And so I said, well, I've got a little business background, the blues, beer, chili's my favorite food. Then I said, I'll see if I can build a business plan. And again, to my own surprise, that first year we did like 15,000 in profit. And over that 10 year of, I think I did it for about 10 or 11 or 12 years. We raised over $130,000 for not-for-profits, which was second to my own kids, probably the next most proudest thing I've ever been a part of. I mean, we started an early intervention literacy program for third graders, which had profound outputs, and then we bought musical gear and art supplies and freezers and refrigerators for food banks and all kinds of amazing things. And done it quietly. I'm not a big showboater, so I always like to be able to do those things. And then yeah, on the music side of it, I have my own moniker of That Mighty Bumble, streaming everywhere your ears will take you. And I've got a couple records out there. I've got another one basically in the can. Hopefully, maybe by the early part of the year. I find that I say that at the beginning of every year. I'm like, I know this year will be the time when I get to it, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and so I put a lot of time and effort into getting it the way I want to hear it.
I'm the same way with books. Yeah, it's got to be perfect, and it's never perfect. So
Yeah. And so at some point you just have to go, I have to move on, right? Because
yeah.
that's what happens. I mean, I literally have probably enough content for like 4 records, yeah, you get so in this churn of trying to be a perfectionist, and it's like you just need to cut bait at some point. But
You need to let it out. You need to let it be free.
yes, exactly.
Let other people enjoy it. Yeah. So let's get back to the city council matters. You talked about some projects you want to see through, some priorities you want to see through to the finish line. Maybe start with if you can name a number one, what's the first thing you want to work on upon reelection starting in January to see through?
Yeah, so the first one, which I'm super proud of being able to collaborate with my colleagues on this current council to provide seed funding for architectural engineering design resources for our school division to finish the high school. And so I want to make sure that we obligate and commit those financial resources that are going to be necessary to draw a bond, a municipal bond to carry forward that work, because it's only going to get more expensive if we don't do something about it. Um, so that is first and foremost, because well, one, I mean, we ought to take care of our buildings. We ought to take care of our resources and take public education seriously, and I do. And in that effect, the second one would be the Natural History Museum, so the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Very grateful for our local delegations. They've introduced a couple budget amendments. We have adequate funding right now to complete A&E work. So it won't be this budget session, but in the so it'll be for the 2027 or 2027 session, which begins in January of 2026. That session will hopefully be the opportunity to secure the construction funding that we're going to be that we'll need in order to get that. That'll be transformative for our community, and I think a real compliment to so much of the other work that I've been so diligent about and focused on, like the South River Preserve project as an example. So all of those investments and how those marry up together to complement this museum, I think are profound. So that, and then last but not least is affordable housing and homelessness, and those that are in crisis and in need to identify, well, develop a plan, which I've kind of been advocating for a while. The housing is the absolute hardest uh, challenge because of a variety of reasons, which we could do a whole other podcast on. But but it's important, and so important things can't be set aside. And I think we've done some not earth-shattering, monumental, cataclysmic changes on council as of late, but I'm really encouraged that um, this council is very focused on trying to do something, and so I'd like to kind of lead that effort as well, or
Yeah,
at
you're
least
right.
help point folks in the right direction.
You're right. We could talk about, we could do a whole separate long podcast on that.
Yes.
Here at Augusta Free Press, Crystal Graham is our primary Waynesboro government reporter, and we've talked for months about how that's the affordable housing and homelessness, which seem to go hand in hand, are that's the big issue, and it seems like to us in Waynesboro and Stanton, for the two localities to deal with. And you're right, it's not easy. We've done our own studies. We've reached out to other cities to see what they're doing. Our neighboring cities, Charlottesville, Harrisonburg, which have some plans in motion, and of course, I'm sure every city in the country has got
Oh,
some plans in
absolutely.
motion there too. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that our council is trying to be proactive in that respect, because you're right, it's been a problem years in the making, and it seems like we're just starting to touch the tip of the iceberg of what we need to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's definitely encouraging, but it's going to require some resources and some patience and time, but most importantly, a strategy. And so,
Well, something that I ran into you a couple weeks ago at something that for our part of town, Ward B, I live in Ward B as well. It should be very important. The groundbreaking for the new Weston fire station, which was only 17 years in the making. City voters voted back in 2007
right,
to approve a referendum. The technicality, it didn't get to go through at that time. Delayed several times. I think the 2008 recession and then the 2020 pandemic. But here we are, 17 years later, we've broken ground, and that should really improve emergency response times on the west part of town.
absolutely. Yeah, so grateful for that. I mean, first and foremost, you get there and people hand you a cute little shovel and you go throw some dirt all around the place. I remember somebody, asked me afterwards, "Oh, do you want me to get a picture of you in council?" I'm like, "I already got the picture that I really wanted," and that was of our firefighters. And this the looks on their faces. They deserve this as much as anyone to continue to keep us safe and to protect us. I was, mayor at the onset of the global pandemic, and learned all too quickly that having three companies operating out of the same fire station in the midst of a global pandemic is a bad idea. And so we had begun to set funds aside pursuant to our comprehensive plan for projects like Sunset Park and some other ones. And so, thank goodness, I mean, when I got on council, there was a capital improvement plan that our community invested nearly $0 into. $0. And so we had gotten to a point where we were, at that stage, we're 4 or 5 years deep into setting aside reserves for known expenditures. And so we were able to pull those and immediately divert funds that we'd been setting aside for some priorities, some wants, and really been able to divert it and put it into a need category so we can get that architectural engineering work done. And it's for that reason, even though there was a delay in receiving our final drawings and everything to kind of get that work kicked off, there are a lot of communities that are going to still be waiting. And I think so. I'm very proud of the fact that we had the resources, one, to pivot and immediately acquire property, do the A&E work, and then ultimately break ground on it. Our citizens deserve this project. Our firefighters deserve this project, and it's long overdue. So I'm so grateful to have played a small role in it.
Another project that it's taking place in our part of town, but will have impact not just throughout Waynesboro, but throughout the region. An economic development project for those who are familiar with the Target Town Center, Waynesboro Town Center, where the Target is. If you ever take the interstate exit there at 94 going towards Charlottesville, you can really see the development work going on behind there. Northrop Grumman is going to bring a lot of jobs, a lot of good paying jobs to Waynesboro. That's something that I think will really help add to and transform our economic climate here in Waynesboro. I want to get your thoughts on that and the impact that that can have on Waynesboro's economy going forward.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of those things that's so interesting that I don't expect folks to sort of be able to track it in the way where you're if you're living it right, you kind of maybe track things in a long way, but those things take a long time. I can remember conversations, and there are subtle things that lead to those investments, and to lead to allow us to be competitive in that regard. It started with the McAuliffe administration, believe it or not, with maybe not the development, the actual known user, but setting stages, setting investments, developing it. The Northam administration was key in supporting us with some VDC, VDP, Virginia Economic Development Partnership resources in order to start doing some site evaluations. And then and last but not least, at all would be Governor Youngkin and his support in his office and helping uh, keeping Virginia competitive. It was a very competitive project that we could have lost, and it will be transformative. And when you look at a community with a average household income around $42,000 per household, and a singular job average is 95,000 at Northrop Grumman, that will be transformative and encouraging. So most importantly is that before people get too excited about it, I tell folks who get really excited about it is all that means is that we've got work to do, because it's one thing to celebrate, it's another thing to keep planning. When there's no money to build things, people plan, and when there is money to build things, people wish they had it. And so I believe that we've got to continue to lay the groundwork to remain competitive, to complement economic development investments that come to the city. And there are so many exciting things that, again, we could do a whole other podcast on that we are doing, and we plan on doing, and hopefully we'll commit to some investments to see that over the finish line. But yeah, super excited about that for what it means to our residents.
Some of that groundwork you talk about too. I also see when I'm driving on the interstate going eastbound, the work on that access road for the industrial park. I mean, you can visibly see what's going on there. Every time I drive by, there's more progress there, and
Right.
that's just more that opens up something for Waynesboro in the future too. That hopefully the near future for even more development. We our community had the history of great jobs for so long. DuPont, General Electric, those jobs went away starting in the 80s into the 90s, and we're just now here 25 years later starting to replace those jobs. But that's how long it can take to move an economy into a new direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the it boils down to when you think about what a plan needs to look like, we need to continue to elevate Waynesboro as a community of choice. And one of the lenses that came out of our 2017-2018 conference plan was this acknowledgement that uh, we are competing. We are competing with our neighbors. We are competing across regionally, and we're competing across Virginia, and then also nationally, and south in the southeast. And so what that means is that you can't just be good at one thing. You've got to be able to and make strategic investments that build an ecosystem within the city that is exciting, that folks want to locate to it. Businesses want, and the number one reason businesses locate to communities has nothing to do with their tax rate. It has everything to do with what kind of community will their employees live in. And so that is incredibly exciting. The second is that 85% of all economic growth happens within the community, within the business community that is already in your community. So while it's always great to have the shiny new things and super grateful for Northrop Grumman, we're seeing growth explode across our existing economic base as well. So I think that's just a testament to all the hard work that's been going on.
So you're running for the Ward B seat. You've been the at-large representative for 8.5 years almost. You'll be by the end of this year. You're out getting around, knocking on doors, talking with folks at events and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
What are you hearing back from people as you are campaigning about how the city's doing and just what have your interactions been like in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's certainly factions that are I would call blissfully uninformed, and that there's when they are orienting themselves to a conversation and they have a deep cognitive bias. There's really there's no way to go around that conversation. So those folks will exist, but to celebrate. I would say that what I hear from folks, I don't, I don't do parties, and I am, I've got very strong personal beliefs and about certain things, but when I knock on doors, I knock on everybody's door, and what I hear from folks is that they're proud of the community that they live in, and that is, and they're excited about the things that are going on from Sunset Park to the fire station, to the South River Preserve, to infrastructure improvements that they're seeing. And I love that this element of it, of going and talking to folks. I think you've got to put in the work, because otherwise, if you're campaigning and the only person you ever talk to is yourself in the mirror, you really, I don't know if that's really great representative government. And so I think it's super important to get out there and talk to folks.
I have to ask this kind of does go towards a line of asking a partisan question, but there is a lawsuit pending where two members of the electoral board are hinting that they don't want to have to certify the election. And now I know that probably has a lot more to do with the presidential election, but a concern has to be there that with 3 seats on Waynesboro City Council up in this year's election, that could throw a monkey wrench into how we do our things here in Waynesboro. Are you monitoring this, and what are your concerns, if any, related to this?
Well, I'm certainly aware of it, and I'm also kind of a lifelong Cubs fan and an internal optimist that things have their way of just sort of kind of working their way out. And so I believe that with this as well. I think it's an embarrassment, truthfully, for these two gentlemen. And really, if you want to talk about fairness, I mean, let's just talk about fairness and how and quality and security of our elections and how they're held in Waynesboro just for a minute. All you have to do is turn on YouTube on Monday. Turn on YouTube on Monday, 7 p.m., and watch and see 5 people who come from very different political dynamics and political persuasions, and they all got elected the same way, using the same tool, using the same process, using the same certification that folks in tinfoil hats now don't want to use. So that is ludicrous to me. And again, also too, the same machines, the same process and the same certification process that were just fine in June for the Republican primary. Incredible to me. But there it is. So I guess people do what they do, right? But I'm an optimist. I think it all kind of work its way out, but it is embarrassing.
There was a question for years as Waynesboro debated, over the course of years about moving from May elections to November elections. Okay, the benefit would be in May elections, we tended to have turnout in the 20 to 25% range. In a November election, particularly in a presidential year like this year, we'll get 75, 80% turnout. The drawback to that 75 to 80% turnout will be that perhaps a lot of those folks are just paying attention to the presidential level, maybe not as attuned to the local level. Um, what is your sense of that? I mean, this is the first cycle you've run in like this. And you did run in the 16 and 20 cycles in the May election. So,
Right.
what is your intuition on this?
Well, so I would say, folks ask me all the time of, how do you think things are looking? How's it going to go? And, the reality is just that it has been stupid quiet. I mean, just absolute straight up stupid quiet. Um, and so for that, I'd like to think that people know how hard I've worked, and that'll mean something. But I also believe that you should always run like you're losing because you probably are. And so for that, I don't do any of those kind of predictions. It could go any way. At the end of the day, it's just how people show up. As a person, that ran and gratefully won twice in 16 and 20. Um, I would say that I am also a huge advocate for what has happened. So I actually am a supporter of the May to November elections, and more importantly, perhaps for our ward structure. In fact, I worked with a delegate out in Virginia Beach to advocate and did a joint press release with her when she carried the bill that Virginia Beach was the only other city in the Commonwealth, along with Waynesboro, that um, you had to you had to live in the ward that you wanted to run, but the whole city could vote for you. And at the end of the day, win lose, I'm good with it either way. Um, is I believe that we are a stronger democracy when more people participate. I believe that we are a stronger democracy when there is representative government. And the best way to do that is to provide those fixed boundaries of having these four wards and an at-large member. I'm not running for at-large because a year ago I got a promotion at work, and I just knew I wasn't going to have the bandwidth to run a citywide campaign in November. Little did I know, a couple weeks ago I got another promotion, and so that's definitely has going to serve well. But I uh, I do worry about folks, being informed and knowledgeable about, you've got three candidates on city council that are running for council this election who knocked on 140 to 180 doors, and worked their tails off to get signatures, myself included. I did that over about a 3-4 month period, dedicating time after I got off of work, going out on weekends, riding my bike around town, and committing the time to it. Versus three other candidates who I don't think our community may fully understand. I mean, I know that you've written some stuff on it, Chris, and I appreciate it, but um, it's when we're this close to just a few days out from the election, and I don't think folks fully realize that you get three folks on council that our vice mayor put them on the ballot, in the hopes of becoming mayor. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what this is about. And so these three folks didn't go knock on any neighbor's door. They didn't go and go to a community event and handshake and get to know people. Um, they decided that it was just more convenient and easier and simpler to get the signing of the signature of one individual in order to put them on the ballot, and that's is really super unfortunate. And I think it speaks to the character of folks to take sort of that easy road. And so when you combine those two elements, right, of the seriousness and the magnitude of folks not going out and talking to people in the community to get themselves on the ballot, and then second of all, an environment where there's just not a lot of attention on local elections. I don't know what the mix of that's going to be. I know I'm super proud. Again, win lose 8.5 years. I can look back and go, oh my gosh. I mean, just I don't even get me started, but I mean, I remember going up to the first I think Sunset Park had been open for maybe a couple weeks, and my wife Heather and I we went up there and we were sitting up on a bench, and I saw um, a group of older gentlemen, probably in their late 60s, early 70s, and they were just having a good time over by an overlook taking some pictures. And they asked a stranger to take a group photograph, and they were just sort of celebrating. And it was at that moment that I learned that we could see that it was one of their birthdays. And these guys were just goofballs, and they'd known each other for a long time. And at the end, the birthday boy turned around and took a picture of the sunset. And at the end of the day, fire stations and police cars and compensation for our employees and acknowledging what they mean and how valuable our school teachers are, and along and on and on and on. Economic development projects, nothing else can bring joy, and in the way that that singular investment has. So I can definitely be super proud of 8.5 years at the end of it, and hopefully the voters will think likewise and show up and vote.
My favorite two things about Waynesboro are the Greenway, especially now with the work that's been done to really enhance the Greenway. I've trained for marathons on that Greenway. It's a beautiful spot. I think that's a great job over, many years by city councils, and then Sunset Park. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Every time I go up there, it's a similar scene. It sounds like to when you described there. There are people who are kind of looking out on the city and trying to figure out what this is here and where's that and where's Main Street and where's my house and
yeah,
I love that and yeah, when people get up there, we're all on the same team. We don't have R's and D's and all that stuff. We're just people and
it's
yeah,
just
that
the
brings out the
coolest,
kids in us in that
just
respect.
the coolest thing. Yeah.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you for your time. As we are finishing up talking here, we're just about a week away from the election, so a lot of hard work for you still to do, even with all the early voting. There's still a lot more people to vote early, and then, of course, on election day. So, best of luck to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Get out and vote.